We are now ready to examine the first sub-item 11A, examination of nominations for inscription on the list of intangible cultural heritage in need of urgent safeguarding. We will examine 6 nominations. They are national files submitted by Botswana, Mongolia, Morocco, Turkey, and the United Arab Emirates, together with 1 multinational file by Colombia and the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela. Before starting the examination of the nominations, it is important that we remember the criteria that must guide our decisions today. Can we see them on the screen? Yeah, just scroll down, one by one. Okay, let us move now to the examination of the individual files. We will first examine the nomination Dikopello folk music of Bakatala Ba Kgafella in Kgateleng district, draft decision 11.8.1, submitted by Botswana. Before giving the floor to the chairperson of the evaluation body, I believe that the Secretariat would like to share with us some clarification about the examination of this file.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. Indeed, I believe there is a need for us to clarify something in the process of the evaluation of this file. The evaluation body had initially recommended for a referral for this nomination on the basis of Criterion R5, in particular noting that the file does not include a budget, mention of the available funding, or a precise timetable. These are considered as indispensable requirements for the safeguarding plan for an element in need of urgent safeguarding. Following the publication of the document on 27 October 2017, Botswana contacted the Secretariat to point out that it had in fact submitted the information mentioned as missing in the draft decision, which prompted the Secretariat to check the file. The Secretariat realized that the submitting state had indeed sent, at the time of the initial submission in March 2016, a budget and timetable for the safeguarding plan. However, this document was submitted as a separate file and by separate emails. The Secretariat did not therefore notice the missing information. Since the information was not integrated into the evaluation nomination form ICH01, it was not transmitted to the evaluation body. So this information was not evaluated. This is an unfortunate oversight that the Secretariat regrets. The evaluation body was asked in November 2017 to review the file in light of the information provided in the document. It considered that the information addressed the concerns raised in its initial recommendation. The 12 members reached a consensus on a new draft decision, recommending that the committee inscribe the element concerned on the urgent safeguarding list. The revised recommendation is included in document ITH/17/12.com 11.A Rev. Again, I apologize to the submitting state for this oversight, and I wish to thank the members of the evaluation body for their prompt reaction and efficient cooperation in resolving this issue. Thank you, Mr. Chairperson.
Thank you, Mr. Tim Curtis. Your detailed explanation indeed clarifies the situation for members of the committee. Now, our rapporteur, Mr. Skunt, the floor is now yours to present to us the findings of the body on this nomination.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. The first file is the Kopelo folk music of Bagatla Bagafela in Gatleng district. I apologize if my pronunciation of any names is not correct, submitted by Botswana. The kopilo involves vocal singing and dancing in a patterned choreography without musical instruments. The kopilo is in need of urgent safeguarding, primarily as a result of migration away from farmlands of villages, as well as modern entertainment practices which threaten its viability. The community and the practitioners are nonetheless committed to safeguarding the element, as illustrated by efforts to complete with groups from other districts and to revive the kopilo as a strategy to protect young people from social ills. From the information included in the file, the nomination satisfies the following criteria for inscription on the list of intangible cultural heritage in need of urgent safeguarding. As for Criterion U1, the element is clearly described in terms of its practice, the bearers involved, its transmission, and its cultural relevance for the community, including an explanation of its historical development and contemporary needs. The practice provides an avenue for rural communities to forge solidarity and share common values that can be shared by a wider community, including their well-wishers. As for Criterion U2, the endangered status of the element is fully substantiated by the threats identified in its social and economic contexts. These include the migration of young people, a lack of cultural spaces and opportunities to practice the element, and the popularity of various forms of modern music, misappropriation by some modern artists, among others. As for Criterion U3, developed with the active participation of communities, the safeguarding plan includes measures addressing threats to the element. It incorporates a diversity of safeguarding initiatives, such as research and documentation activities aiming at raising awareness of the public, the development of educational materials, and promotional activities through various media, which are expected to increase the visibility of the element at the national and international level. As for Criterion U4, the active participation of the communities was ensured through the nomination process, which is the result of their expressions of concern about the future viability of the element. Associations of bearers, institutions, and traditional and formal authorities provided their consent. As for Criterion U5, since 2010, the element has been registered in the Intangible Cultural Heritage Inventory of Gatling District, which is regularly updated and managed by the Futadikubu Museum and the Ministry of Youth, Sport and Culture. Evidence of the participation of communities concerned is provided. Therefore, the evaluation body recommends that the committee inscribe the Kopelo folk music of Bagatla Bagafela in Gatling District on the list of intangible cultural heritage in need of urgent safeguarding. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson of the evaluation body, for this very detailed explanation of the different issues raised during the evaluation of this file. May I therefore ask the committee to adopt the draft decision on this file as shown on the screens as a whole? Just scroll down. I see no objection. I therefore declare decision 12.com 11.8.1 adopted. Congratulations, Botswana. Now the floor is yours for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson, for giving Botswana an opportunity to receive the decision taken during this very important meeting. Botswana would like to applaud the committee for receiving and making a thorough assessment of the nomination file, which was submitted for the first time in 2012 and could not satisfy all the criterions. A lot of effort was made to close all the identified gaps on the file, and in March 2016, it was resubmitted for possible inscription for the third time. The time and effort taken by the community to close the gaps gave Botswana an opportunity to grow in terms of compiling a winning nomination file. Mr. Chairperson, Botswana is very delighted to receive the adopted decision to inscribe the element of the Kopelo folk music of Bakhatla Bakhafela in the Khatlen district, and commits to the implementation of the safeguarding plan as well as submission of periodic reports. The decision to inscribe the element has motivated Botswana to continue using UNESCO systems to safeguard her diverse intangible cultural heritage. Thank you once more, Mr. Chairperson.
Thank you. Congratulations once again, Botswana. We will have a video provided by Botswana, maybe.
Dikopelo rra ke dilo tse di tlhamegileng di tlhamelwa ke batho ba selegae mo masimong e le batho bana ba beiwa ke dikgosi ka dikgoro yaanong e be le gore gone go ba bopagong ba bopagana bopangwa ke gona ke go opela bantsi bana ba le mo maitiso ao a na dirwa nako tsa mariga ga batho ba itisitse ka gore bosigo wa mariga no bonna botelele nang bana ba ne le basetsana ba tla ba tsamaya ba opella ho ha le ba le ne go teke ko dikopelo di nnang teng ko maitiso yaanong e be le gore ba basimanyana ba tla tswa ka ha le bona ka ba tla ba kopana.
Thank you. We will now move to the examination of the multinational nomination, Colombian, Venezuelan, Llano work songs, draft decision 11.A.2, submitted by Colombia and the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela. I will now give the floor to the chairperson of the evaluation body so that he can share with us the findings of the body on this nomination.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Llano work songs consist of tunes sung individually, a cappella, on the themes of herding and milking. The songs are repositories of the individual and collective stories of the Llaneros. The practice nonetheless faces numerous threats to its viability, such as the modification of social, cultural, and natural sites of the songs and alterations of the demographic composition of Llanero society. Safeguarding efforts include a pedagogical strategy for bearers and young people, training for school teachers and festivals. The evaluation body considers that the following criteria are met. Criterion U1 is satisfied because the element constitutes a practice of intangible cultural heritage of the communities concerned and unites them. Highly expressive songs help to accustom cattle to the presence of humans and to tame them, mainly during the milking process. Criterion U2 is also met since a comprehensive analysis of different threats to the element is provided. The government's legislation, oil and gas extraction, large-scale irrigation exploitation of biofuels, delimitation of properties with barbed wire, construction of road networks, migration to urban areas, among others. The use of new media forms and technologies substituting the human voice are also perceived as threats to the element. Criterion U3 is also met. A 5-year plan is structured around knowledge, revitalization, and transmission of the Llano songs, showing the commitment of the communities and the institutions involved. It also includes joint actions between two countries where practitioners can benefit from the exchange of experiences. Criterion U4 is satisfied because the fruitful synergies between the efforts of communities, associations, and the respective institutions are evident. Diverse and numerous expressions of consent encompass creative written testimonies, fingerprints, palm imprints, and photographs. Criterion U5 testifies that the element is included in inventories of intangible cultural heritage in both Colombia and the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela. However, the frequency with which the inventory and community participation is in drafting the entry are missing in the case of Colombia. Therefore, the evaluation body recommends to refer the nomination of Colombian, Venezuelan, Llano work songs to the submitting states parties. The committee may commend the states parties for the otherwise well-conceived and carefully prepared file, notably in relation to the description of the threats to the element. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Skunti, for this detailed explanation of the different issues raised during the evaluation of this file. This is the first case of a dual system of draft decisions that we will have to examine during the present session. As explained on Monday during the examination of item 2, adoption of the agenda, the Bureau decided to open the debate on this file by raising questions identified by the evaluation body. The committee has received written information from the submitting states concerning these questions. This written information will be attached for the record to the nomination file. In conformity with Rule 22.4 of the Rules of Procedure of the committee, I'd like to give the floor to the submitting states to provide us with relevant information concerning the following two issues. First, community participation in the inventorying process in Colombia, and second, frequency of updating of the inventory in Colombia. Allow me to remind the submitting states that their interventions shall be limited to address these two specific issues. Colombia, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The evaluation body has two main questions for the Colombian file within the Criteria 5. The first one refers to the frequency with which the inventory in Colombia is updated. The second one is related to the community participation in drafting the entry in Colombia. In order to give an answer for these two main questions, we need to explain before a little bit of how the regulations works in Colombia and how the inscription of an element in the national list of intangible cultural heritage works in Colombia according to its law and regulations. The main instrument that serves as an inventory of Colombian cultural heritage is the representative list of the intangible cultural heritage at national level. This list contains the development of an update regulation which explains the procedure by which the interest of communities can register to it cultural manifestations and practices undertaken in turn a special safeguarding plan, which must be built and agreed upon by the bidders and social actors related to the cultural manifestation in question. The participatory preparation of the special safeguarding plan is a mandatory requirement to enter to the list and is the basis for the registry that has been presenting along with the nomination. This entire procedure is stipulated in the General Law of Culture and explained in the section of Intangible Cultural Heritage. Taking as a starting point this legal framework, we can indicate with respect to the arguments with which the submission of the element work songs of the Colombo-Venezuela Llano has been presented, we wish to clarify the following manner. Regarding the frequency with which the inventory in Colombia is updated, we say the following words. The nomination file in case of Colombia explained that the Llano work songs are inscribed in inventories on the local, regional, and national level. The inventories on the local and regional level are updated according to the needs of the authorities and communities. However, and most importantly, the Llano work songs are inscribed in Colombia, Colombians' main registry of the ICH element through the representative list of intangible cultural heritage of Colombia, administered by the Ministry of Culture. The inclusion of the Llano work songs was only possible after the elaboration of the special safeguarding plan, which was constructed through a participatory process with the communities, bidders, cultural agents, researchers, and local authorities. As we have explained, the special safeguarding plan is the basis for the registry of an element in the Colombian National ICH representative list, containing a detailed description, its social function, the modes of transmission, as well as the risk, opportunities, and safeguarding initiatives that are a result of the participatory process. The national laws pointed above establish that the special safeguarding plans must be reviewed and renewed every 5 years by the Ministry of Culture. This action constitutes the main mechanism for updating the inventory, since it allows reviewing the status of the manifestation in question and the action that have been undertaken to guarantee its sustainability and safeguarding in the medium term. The element presented this year to the committee was inscribed in the National Representative List of the Intangible Cultural Heritage in the year of 2003. It means the next year, revision and update of special safeguarding plan will take place. Regarding the second question about community participation in drafting the entry in the Colombia file, we want to clarify that the current regulations in Colombia define the special safeguarding plan as a social and administrative agreement by the community involved in the element. The laws regarding intangible cultural heritage safeguarding explicitly request the consultation and participation mechanisms are mandatory for a special safeguarding plan to be approved as main tool for the management and safeguarding of the element. For the candidacy to the UNESCO list, this participation was also secured as evidence in the records annexes presented in the nomination file that all the state parties have in their hands right now. Since 2011, a working group led by the ONG Fundeset and supervised by the Ministry of Culture undertook a tour through the Llano region, gathering testimonies with elder carriers with their respective informed consensus forms on different characteristics of Llano work songs and its historical memory in order to construct a robust description of the element for the special safeguarding plan. Furthermore, in each of the 4 departments in other countries countries known as provinces of the Llano region of Colombia, different forums were constructed that were open to all interest actors in order to build a special safeguarding plan for the inclusion of an element in the representative list. important representation of musicians, of cattle dealers, cultural managers, representatives of educational institutions, and researchers was inscribed. They contributed to the reconstruction of the Llano work songs that represents for the Llano culture in general and how to explain its safeguarding and management. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. The floor is now open to committee members. Cuba, Palestine, and now I give the floor first to Cuba.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Et on voudrait remercier la Colombie pour les informations qu'il vient de nous donner. Et notre délégation pense que c'est une information qui couvre les doutes qui nous a présenté l'organe d'évaluation. Et pour ça, nous sommes tout à fait d'accord que cet élément s'est inscrit comme a demandé les États soumissionnés. Merci beaucoup.
Okay, thank you, Cuba. Now, Palestine.
شكرا سيد الرئيس. ولن أطيل عليكم. سأخذ الكلام بنفس الاتجاه الذي تكلمت به زميلتنا من كوبا، فإن التوضيحات التي قدمتها كولومبيا وكذلك الوثائق التي وصلتنا من فنزويلا ومن كولومبيا تبين أن هذا العنصر جدير بالإدراج، وبالتالي نحن ندعم إدراج هذا العنصر وأن نذهب إلى التسجيل عوضا عن التأجيل. شكرا سيد الرئيس.
Thank you, Ambassador. Now I give the floor to Bulgaria.
The delegation of Bulgaria would like to express first our appreciation for the work done by the evaluation body and our congratulations for the extremely rich report. With regards to the nomination of Colombian Venezuelan Llano work songs, we would also like to share our satisfaction with the additional explanations provided and to emphasize that these explanations give clear evidence of the continuous and systematic updating of inventorying on local and regional level in close connection with the 5-year safeguarding plan, as well as of the wide participation of communities and barriers in the inventorying process. We have no hesitation to express our support for the inscription of Colombian Venezuelan Llano work songs. Thank you.
Turkey. Côte d'Ivoire. Okay, thank you. I think this file enjoys wide support. Still on my list, Armenia, Turkey, St. Lucia, Ethiopia, Guatemala, Lebanon, Philippines, Côte d'Ivoire, even India. India, Mongolia. So I think Zambia, Afghanistan, so many. So yeah. So I'd like to ask even Algeria. So among these speakers, are there or is there any opposing the views? If that's the case, please raise your nameplate, country nameplate. Otherwise, I will duly record your supporting opinion, supporting views. So I think no objection. Not yet. Yeah. I recognize Ethiopia. You will express some of the opposing views? No, it's a register. Yeah.
I'm in support.
Thank you. Yeah, all the speakers who wish to make some supportive remarks will be duly reflected on our record. Thank you so much. Can we now, we are ready to move on to the adoption of the decision. para by para, but given the wide-ranged support from many committee members. Anyway, can you scroll down from 1?
We have to go para by para.
All right, okay. Yeah, Secretary advised me we'd better go para by para. Can we consider para 1 adopted?
Palestine, is it a point of order?
Palestine is a point of order, or?
Somehow it's a suggestion, Mr. Chair, instead of going paragraph by paragraph and knowing that there is a huge support and we know that we are going for the inscription option, can we adopt it with the inscription option and deleting the referral option? It will go very quick. This is a suggestion. It's up to you, Mr. Chair. It's your ruling. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you so much, Ambassador Munir. You are taking side with the chair's ruling rather than Secretariat's advice. So, can I take it that our committee members will adopt the decision as a whole?
We need to prepare the decision for inscription. Adopted. So we need to do some editing.
Just to show some addition or the correction of the.
We need some time to prepare the inscribed.
Okay, Secretary asked me, the Secretariat needs some time just for editing from the referral to inscription. So just wait some few moments. And the Secretariat, when the new draft decision becomes available, please let me know. Okay, so ready. So just scroll down from the para 1 and through the end of the draft decision. Yeah, okay, it's okay. Para 1 and para 2, para 3. Yeah, para 3 and duly re-edited from referral to inscriptions. So can we consider, no, this one is, yeah, this one. So can we then adopt the decision as a whole as amended? No. Saint Lucia.
Mr. Chair, as part of what you deleted, there is a section which says commends the state party for the otherwise well-conceived and carefully prepared file. I think that should be kept. Take out the word otherwise because you are commending for a specific thing and I think it should be there. Commends the state party for the take out the word otherwise and leave commends the state parties for the well-conceived and carefully prepared file, notably in relation to the description of the threats to the element.
Saint Lucia, can you elaborate which para are you talking
It's
about?
right there. The commendation of the state party, I think, should be kept.
So any comments regarding the Saint Lucia's some the technical correction? I see none. I therefore declare decision 12.com 11.8.2 adopted as amended. Hungary.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have been trying to follow up the amendment suggested by Santa Lucia and try to assess its impact. Since this is the first file that we are dealing that has an R5 problem, or U5 in this case, And the decision has been prepared with the view that in the nomination there has been some problem with R5, which has been clear today. I'm wondering how our decisions will keep a record of this problem, that nevertheless there has been a problem with one of the criteria. So in that perspective, I would be more comfortable in going along with the original suggestion, or finding some language that somehow commends the file overall, but keeps somehow a record of the, in this case, the U5 criteria problem. I'm raising this at this stage because I think what we adopt here is likely to apply to other files, other nominations that had U5 or R5 problems. So I think we should come to a structural agreement at this stage. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it's the first case, after introduction of dual option. Yeah, I think the points raised by St. Lucia and Hungary, the points are quite relevant. And St. Lucia, you ask the floor? Okay, St. Lucia.
Yes, I agree for Hungary, a very important point. But I want to point out that this makes a specific reference to the description of the threats to the element and how they dealt with that. And I want this to be kept as is.
I recognize Cuba. Cuba, you have the floor.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Je comprends la préoccupation du collègue de l'Hongrie et je la partage aussi, mais je pense que la rédaction c'est un peu forte parce que si finalement on va faire l'inscription, comment ça ces paragraphes pour dire que le dossier n'est pas suffisant d'informations pour déterminer si les critères U5 étaient satisfaits, je pense qu'on doit changer un petit peu ces propositions. Et on peut commencer à dire que sur la base d'informations soumises par l'État, le comité prend la décision de l'inscription parce qu'il y a 12 options qui nous a proposé l'organe d'évaluation. Mais je pense que commencer le paragraphe avec ces phrases un peu négatives, je ne sais pas si sera une bonne idée pour ces dossiers et pour les autres qui viennent à continuation. Merci.
Okay, thank you, Cuba. Now, I think I give the floor to the Secretariat, just to make some clarification before giving to Palestine.
Just one procedural thing in relation to some of the concerns raised. The extra information that has been submitted in writing will be, after the decision, attached to the nomination and to the decision, and all discussions will be recorded. That needs to be clarified. That is why we encourage written submissions so that they can be attached for the record. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And Ambassador Munir, Palestine, you want to speak?
Very quickly, Mr. Chair. My understanding, actually, what the advisory body proposed for us, two options. Either we take the whole first option or the second whole option. Meanwhile, I understand the concern of our colleague from St. Lucia and our colleague from Hungary, but putting some negative elements in the decision, it wouldn't be appropriate. And now, since it is this first file, we need to have a clear way dealing with it. I think that the evaluation body gave us two options, and we need to take one of the options. Now, if we want to commend the submissionary state parties for especially the notably description of the danger, then we can keep only this thing without mentioning the file, and this maybe address our colleague from Hungary. Otherwise, my proposal is just to be as simple as possible and to take one option or another option, not more and not less, and this will simplify our proceeding for the next files with this kind of dual options. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Palestine, Ethiopia, and followed by Algeria. Now I give the floor, Ethiopia first.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In follow-up to the comments made by my colleague from Palestine, the evaluation body had a misunderstanding. At this stage, if we accept the option 2, which is the inscription option, what we basically are saying is the file was complete, but somehow there was a misunderstanding, and then the submitting state have made a clarification. After the clarification, if we agree with the clarification, which is the case, why would we have to refer back, to recite back that there was a gap? I don't think we need that negative energy. So in our conclusion, all the files, all the annexes, as Mr. Tim have explained, will be attached. That will be a reference. But to our decision, based on the prior informations, be it the one which was under evaluation or the informations later we have received and conceived, we came to a conclusion that it has to be inscribed. So we have to standardize it, and the decision has to be simple and positive, because our conclusion is positive. Otherwise, putting some negative energies, in some of the paragraphs wouldn't make sense even to the communities. So I strongly support the argument of Cuba and Palestine. Thank you.
I now give the floor to Algeria.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Tout d'abord, il est normal que nous prenions un peu plus de temps avec cette décision, étant donné que c'est la première, et elle va, en quelque sorte, faire office de jurisprudence pour le reste de nos travaux, des autres décisions. Donc, il est sain de discuter, de débattre un peu plus sur la manière de faire. Pour notre délégation, nous sommes à l'aise avec les deux options. Ce qu'a présenté le délégué de Hongrie fait sens, mais également le fait est que l'organe d'évaluation a proposé deux options, et comme l'a signalé le délégué de Palestine, en fait notre choix se limite à prendre la première ou la deuxième. Et faire un mix des deux peut-être serait préjudiciable, parce que cette discussion, nous l'avons déjà eue à Addis Abeba lors de notre dernière session, et on avait présenté, cette possibilité était présentée sur la table, et on l'avait écarté en disant que cela pourrait être dommageable et créerait une liste à deux vitesses avec des dossiers qui étaient clean et d'autres qui auraient été repêchés en quelque sorte. Donc nous souhaiterions à ce sujet écouter peut-être l'organe d'évaluation et avoir l'avis du président qui était ici présent. Donc peut-être avec quelques éclaircissements, nous pourrons trancher pour une méthode ou une autre. Mais pour nous, il est clairement préférable de rester sur une option bien définie, claire, qui est la deuxième option. Je vous remercie, Monsieur le Président.
Okay, thank you, Algeria. I think, as mentioned and proposed by many delegations, it's the first case after introduction of dual system. So we are now setting the precedent, new precedent. So it's very important for us now to decide a kind of modality working method. So I now give the floor to Austria, Guatemala, Afghanistan. Now Austria first.
Thank you. We agree with St. Lucia and Hungary that have suggested a very valid issue. And if And we also agree with Ethiopia and others to not have any negative connotation in our decision. So maybe one option might be to use the sentence we had last year, where basically we thanked the state for providing the additional information that was helpful for the adoption. So we might want to look at the sentence we had in our decisions last year we used. Thank you.
Thank you, Austria. And Guatemala.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairperson. In the same sense, we believe that the expression that the file was not sufficient is not a wording that we could support. We can take into account the proposal that has just made the delegation of Austria, or if not, we would like to propose a text saying that takes note that the information included in the file, as well as on the basis of the information provided by the submitting states to the committee as it's presented. In that sense, we would be deleting the expression was not sufficient to determine whether criterion U5 is satisfied, but further decides that. I think that we are able to remove this text as was not sufficient. Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ambassador. I think the Secretariat already prepared some relevant languages. So at this point, I'd like to give the floor to Mr. Tim Curtis.
Thank you. I just wish to point out that if you read the dual options and you actually read all the texts, you will see, for example, that in the case of an inscription option, look at this one, 3, takes note and then further decides that on the basis of the information provided by the submitting states to the committee at its present session concerning community participation in the inventory process and the frequency of updating of the inventory in Colombia, the following criteria is satisfied. So in a sense, we took the discussions in Addis, we included them, the spirit of that discussion in Addis, they are there. I mean, if I may, that was our suggestion to go para by para to understand the process. So some of those concerns are actually put in the two options because we heard what was being said in Addis Ababa. So if there's the inscription process for all of these, it will make mention in the decision, so please look, that it makes mention to the discussions of the committee, as will the referral option. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Now I give the floor to Afghanistan.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. J'ai une proposition simple. Juste pour atténuer la force, la connotation négative de la première partie, je voudrais simplement proposer qu'au lieu de dire l'information contenue dans le dossier n'était pas suffisante, au lieu de dire pas suffisante, dire pas complète. Voilà. Au lieu de dire pas suffisante, pas complète. Donc ça atténue la charge négative. Autrement, je suis d'accord pour le reste.
Okay, thank you, Afghanistan. Before giving floor to Zambia, Turkey. No, Guatemala, already I gave a floor. Yeah, point of order from Cuba.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Pour poursuivre avec l'esprit de coopération, je vous demandais au secrétariat d'éviter des expressions extraverbales dans cette salle, s'il vous plaît. Nous sommes en train de réfléchir, nous sommes en train d'arriver à un consensus et je vais demander au secrétariat d'éviter des expressions extraverbales. Merci.
Thank you, Cuba. After hearing Zambia and Turkey, because it's the first case, we'd better go back to our screening para by para, and later, if we think there needs to be some improvement, If that's the case, we will look for some improved working method. Is a point of order, Palestine?
No, just a very quick question. Our colleague from Algeria requested the opinion of the advisory body, and we didn't listen to them. Can we listen to them, Mr. Chair, with your permission? Thank you.
Yeah, why not? Now, yeah, President Sconti.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président. Effectivement, il y a une question de l'honorable délégué de l'Algérie. En vérité, je n'ai pas de réponse. Je pense que vous avez besoin d'un avis juridique. Est-ce qu'il faut que la décision que vous adoptez pour une inscription, puisque c'est le cas pour cette candidature, doit ressembler en tout point aux décisions que vous adoptez pour les autres candidatures qui sont inscrites, où il n'y avait pas de renvoi, ou est-ce que vous voulez créer une différence entre les candidatures qui sont inscrites de facto et celles où il y avait une demande de clarification qui est apportée séance tenante par l'État partie, et auquel cas vous souhaitez faire une différence de traitement au niveau de ces deux décisions. Je pense que c'est d'un avis juridique que vous avez besoin, et malheureusement je ne peux pas l'apporter. Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Zambia, Turkey, Mauritius. Now, Zambia.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. On behalf of my delegation, we do not seem to have a problem with the what was it Afghanistan mentioned about sufficiency. We would rather leave it there. When information is sufficient, it can either be halfway sufficient or halfway insufficient. So we are comfortable with that. However, I would want to take you back to what St. Lucia mentioned concerning para 5 above in the option for referral. What would suggest is we take that para 5 in the option for referral and bring it down to the option, that para there, we remove it from there so that that whole para is deleted. We come out with that para and put it under the option for inscription so that it becomes para 4. Okay? So that it says, commends, after all that explanation, we have received this additional information. Now the committee commends the states parties for the well conceived and the carefully prepared file, notably in relation to the description of the threats. Because the issue here is to emphasize the amount of work they did in describing the threats, okay? After we have commended them, then we go ahead and inscribe, so the numbers change accordingly. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Zambia. Now, Turkey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, we actually understand the merits of the both sides, the arguments of both sides, having the discussions that we are having today be reflected in the decision, but also commending the state party. So I think I was just going to support what the Austrian delegation has mentioned, but with Zambian proposal, maybe we could proceed if we can, if we can move the paragraph before inscription. I think this could be a way out. By commending the state party, we are giving a positive remark, but also reflecting the discussions that we're having with regard to the inventory and the explanations in the decision itself. I think that could be a good way out. Thank you.
Thank you, Turkey. Now, Mauritius.
Thank you, Chair. I believe that there is need for us to maintain the integrity of the proceedings. And also, I subscribe to the idea that whatever decision we are taking should be phrased in a positive manner. And there should also be a need to make a difference between whatever file is acceptable outright and whatever information has been submitted during this session. And for this, I believe that we should put a separate paragraph to state that further information has been submitted here, and then agree to the inscription.
Okay, thank you, Mauritius. Your point was already included, so later we will get back to. I think now, in order for us to save time, as I suggested to you, because this is the first time after introduction of the dual system, let's go back to screening para by para, and later we will look for some improvement measures. Can we consider para 1 adopted? I see no objection. It's adopted. Can we consider criterion U1? I think no objection, maybe. It's adopted. U2? Adopted. U3? Adopted. U4? Adopted. Can we consider para 2? Based on interventions from members of the committee, it seems that we are now satisfied that the information considered as missing by the evaluation body has been provided by the submitting states at the present meeting. Can we consider criterion U5 as proposed under the inscription option adopted? Mm-hmm.
So let's go through what are the proposed amendments, because we're not starting from clean. We received
Okay, yes. I now give the floor to Secretariat regarding the para 3 containing U5.
Just to point out that the beginning of the paragraph 3 is intended to address the issues that were raised in Addis last year about the inscription of files based on discussions during the committee. So perhaps going forward, this is the model that is proposed. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretariat. I recognize the Ambassador of Côte d'Ivoire.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Concernant le paragraphe 3, la Côte d'Ivoire suggère que c'est la première partie du paragraphe qui pose problème, que l'information contenue dans le dossier n'était pas suffisante pour déterminer si le critère U5 était satisfait. La Côte d'Ivoire proposerait, si le comité en était d'accord, que l'on enlève cette partie et qu'on commence ce paragraphe 3 par la phrase « décide que sur la base d'informations fournies par les États, etc., et c'est sur cette base-là que le critère U5 est satisfait. Si le comité en était d'accord, on enlèverait les deux premières phrases et on commencerait le paragraphe 3 par « décide ». On a pris cette décision sur la base d'informations fournies par les États. C'est sur cette base que, finalement, le critère U5 est satisfait. Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Côte d'Ivoire. Now I give the floor to Ethiopia.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In our earlier discussions, I think we came to a consensus that we have to keep, as long as we welcomed the informations and we came to a decision of inscription option, we have to keep the positivity of the decision. But if we live with this, I think it infers that there was something lacking. Why would we need to do that? So, having discussed all this and welcoming the information, what if we live with the standardized way of decision U1, U2, U3, U4, U5, and then probably develop, if need be, a new paragraph, a standardized paragraph for all decisions which we come to a decision by welcoming additional informations. Anyway, we have the summary of records. So we just put U5 in alignment with U1, U2, U3, U4, and then U5. With a new paragraph, probably, we welcome the additional information provided by the state party of Colombia or something, some standardized paragraph, and we keep the whole decision standardized and positive enough. I think it's better we consider the decision that way. Otherwise, this one, a little bit, it has some negative energy to reflect. And what if on another file, we come up with another scenario, like we have a problem with U3, and then again, we will not be having a standardized way of decision making and consistency. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ethiopia. Cuba, Mauritius, Guatemala, Senegal. Yeah, and Cuba first.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Nous sommes tout à fait d'accord avec la proposition de l'ambassadeur de Côte d'Ivoire. Nous sommes tout à fait d'accord aussi pour soutenir et pour préserver l'esprit d'Addis Abeba d'éviter mettre sur un même niveau les dossiers qui sont complètement bien et les dossiers il y a quelques petits détails qui ne sont pas suffisants. Mais on réaffirme l'importance des langages positifs dans ce sens. Pour ça, on soutient la proposition qui vient de faire l'ambassadeur de Côte d'Ivoire. Merci.
Thank you, Cuba. Now, Mauritius.
Thank you, Chair. I subscribe to whatever has been stated by Ivory Coast and would suggest that the word additional be added just before information for the sake of clarity.
Guatemala.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. We fully support the proposal made by the delegation of Ivory Coast. We believe that we would not have any obsession to use the word that this was not complete or that this was not sufficient. Since we are stating here that the decision is made taking into account the information provided by the submitting state at this present session, it implies that it has been made here. I think that with this way of wording, we can find a solution. We are stating here that it was necessary to have this additional information, but then we are not negative in the sense that we are stating that the information is not sufficient. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Ambassador. Now, Senegal.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Nous soutenons la proposition faite par l'ambassadeur de Côte d'Ivoire. Merci.
Thank you, Ambassador. And Palestine, and followed by Algeria. Palestine first.
شكرا سيد الرئيس. أود فقط بكل سرعة أن أدعم المقترح من ساحل العاج، ولكن لدي هناك بعض المشكلة فيما يخص the wording of additional information. Usually in the committee additional information is not accepted. Here it is, when we say information, it is neutral. The standard paragraph that has been proposed by Austria, it is clarification. Here it is between two. I think it is better to keep it as it is. So further decide that on the basis of the information provided, it will be sufficient. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Palestine. Now I give the floor to Algeria.
Je vous remercie, Monsieur le Président. Rapidement, c'était pour rebondir sur ce qu'a dit le délégué de la Palestine. Effectivement, nos règles de procédure ne nous permettent pas de prendre en compte des informations additionnelles. Donc, nous remercions les uns et les autres pour les amendements, mais il ne nous faudrait pas aussi nous mettre en porte-à-faux avec les propres règles de ce comité. Donc, je pense qu'au lieu de mettre additionnel information, de revenir au terme clarification tel que nous l'avons utilisé plusieurs fois, ou rester sur information, mais trouver le bon wording, que le secrétariat peut nous trouver le bon wording pour ne pas être en porte-à-faux avec nos règles de procédure. Je vous remercie, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Algeria. Now, Congo.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Nous soutenons la position de l'ambassadeur de la Côte d'Ivoire par rapport à ce qui a été apporté comme complément.
Thank you, Congo. And any other comments or interventions? No. Can I ask Mr. Secretary to elaborate on the new para 3?
Just to get a sense, my understanding is that Palestine and Algeria raised concerns about the word additional, and are suggesting that additional be removed.
Yeah, I think we almost reached consensus text. We Saint Lucia and okay, Saint Lucia.
Mr. Chair, I seem to have heard Turkey suggest that we take out information and just put clarification on the basis of the clarification provided. I don't know if I am right. Turkey can clarify. I would prefer that.
Yeah. Mr. Tinkotis, it's just a matter of some technicality, either information or clarification. So you take the floor.
My understanding of why the word of information is there is that the dual option, the evaluation body suggested that on the basis of missing factual information. So we used the word information because that is what the evaluation body was asking for in the dual option. Of course, clarification could be there, but it does seem to be a different context to the way we worked in Addis. So we put information because that is what the evaluation body in the dual option scenario requests. And it is indeed the past practice of committees not to accept additional information, but we are in a different, this dual option provides a different context for that. Thank you.
So dear delegates, can everybody agree on new language instead of additional information. And it's comprising some of the clarification, etc., as just presented and explained by Secretariat. Okay, I see no objections. Can we consider para 3 as proposed under inscription option, adopted as a whole as amended? Are there any objections? Seeing no objection, para 3 adopted as amended. Can we consider para 4 of the inscription option? Okay, we already received some of the amendments by St. Lucia, Zambia, Turkey. So any comments or some objections on this new proposed amendment, para 4? St. Lucia.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to show the usefulness of this, when we decide to inscribe, other state parties who are preparing files, especially if they haven't done before, this becomes very important to them. And the example, I mean, it mentions specifically the description, how they dealt with the threats to the element, the description of the threats to the element, and this will serve as a model for others. So this is very useful. It's a very useful thing to put in there.
Okay, thank you, St. Lucia, for your explanation. I think there is no objection on new para 4. So can we consider para 4 of the inscription option adopted? Seeing no objection, adopted. Can we consider para 5 of the inscription option adopted? I see no objection. Is adopted. Can we consider para 6 of the inscription option adopted? I see none. Is adopted. Can we then adopt the decision as a whole as amended? Thank you. I therefore declare decision 12.com 11.8.2 adopted as amended. Okay. Now I'd like to invite submitting states to take the floor. Now the floor is yours for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Colombia would like to thank you, Mr. Chairperson, for the inclusive and participative way that has led the debate on these inscriptions. We would also like to thank the evaluation body for its professional work on the examination of the file, and last but not least, we thank the committee members for considering with a positive verdict the inclusion of the Llano work songs. This Colombian and Venezuelan element is an expression of the cultural universe of the Orinoco region, which is associated with the traditional activities of extensive cattle raising that have been alive for hundreds of years. This is also an expression of how the intangible cultural heritage contributes to consolidate daily life practices of the communities and serve to establish bridges of communication upon broader countries like the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela as a binational effort to enhance the cultural traditions of the Llano work songs, singers in order to support sustainable development practices led by communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Colombia. Mr. Secretary, do we have any performance? Venezuela. Okay, I give the floor to Venezuela.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
avec l'accord du vice-ministre de l'Identité et Diversité culturelle, M. Benito Iradi, au nom du gouvernement bolivarien du président Nicolás Maduro et du peuple vénézuélien, permettez-nous de vous féliciter pour votre élection et remercier la République de Corée pour l'hospitalité et l'excellente organisation de cette 12e réunion du comité. Avec beaucoup d'émotion et de gratitude, le Venezuela est honoré de recevoir avec la République de la Colombie l'inscription des cantos de trabajo del llano colombo venezolano en tant que patrimoine culturel immatériel. Cette 6e déclaration consécutive dans les listes de l'UNESCO de la Convention 2003 démontre une fois de plus l'engagement de notre diplomatie de paix et de nos politiques publiques avec la promotion d'un multilatéralisme culturel fondé sur le respect des droits de l'homme, de la solidarité et de la coopération internationale. Sous ces principes, au Venezuela, la culture est devenue une priorité de l'État, où la défense et la sauvegarde du patrimoine et de la diversité culturelle sont des éléments fondamentaux de notre démocratie participative et protagoniste. Dans ce cadre, les cantos de trabajo del llano colombo venezolano représentent non seulement un engagement pour la sauvegarde urgente de cette manifestation culturelle, mais aussi un exemple de bonne pratique en faveur du développement durable et de la coopération promue par l'UNESCO dans le cadre de l'agenda 2030. Permettez-moi à présent de donner la parole à les deux représentants de la plaine vénézuélienne, M. Ángel Remigio Tobar et M. Vidal Colmenares, afin qu'ils puissent devant cet honorable forum exprimer ces sentiments de chant de la plaine qui aujourd'hui, grâce à vous et à l'UNESCO, deviennent une valeur culturelle universelle. Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président.
Conservita, 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 quéjate de monería. Déjate de monería, porque este que te está ordeñando es el mismo de todos los días, conservita. Agila, agila, novillo, por la huella el cabestrero, que te llevan pa' Caracas a cambiarte por dinero. Ay, japa toro, japa vaca, japa novillo encerado. Este torito está gordo porque estaba empotrerado.
Yeah, thank you so much. Colombian Venezuelan Llano Walk Songs. Let's move. We will now move on to the examination of the nomination. Mongolian traditional practices of worshipping the sacred sites, draft decision 11.A.3, submitted by Mongolia. I will now give the floor to the chairperson of the evaluation body so that he can share with us the findings of the body on these nominations.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. According to ancient shamanism, the Mongolian practices of worshiping sacred sites are based on the belief in invisible deities of the natural surroundings. The practice builds a sense of community and raises awareness about the interdependence of human beings and the environment. During the communist regime in Mongolia, the worship of sacred sites was banned, threatening its viability. Communities have been actively reviving the tradition, but several challenges remain, including globalization, urbanization, and the drastic reduction in the number of practitioners and masters. Criterion U1 is met since the element is well defined and described, mainly the relationship between tangible and intangible heritage and between the element and its natural environment, which is the habitat of the deities that transmit spiritual forces to the bearers, namely the nomadic communities. In addition to its sacred dimension, the element also contributes to the preservation of biological and cultural diversity. Criterion U2 is satisfied in spite of the communities and the state parties' efforts to revive it. The tradition is still threatened by the loss of practitioners, the diminishment of active sacred sites, migrations to urban areas, and mining operations in areas which are home to some of the sacred sites. Criterion U3 is also met because significant efforts have been made since the end of the communist regime to support and strengthen the remaining practices and their transmission. The safeguarding measures adequately respond to the threats identified and include research, documentation, awareness raising, and educational activities. Legal requirements for heritage assessments to be carried out before the issue of mining licenses are also planned. Criterion U4 is also satisfied. The nomination describes widespread efforts to revitalize the related ceremonies involving various stakeholders who have actively participated in the design and preparation of the nomination at all stages. Evidence of their free, prior, and informed consent is provided. Criterion R5, the evaluation body recognizes that the element was included in the national list of intangible cultural heritage in need of urgent safeguarding in 2010, which is maintained by the Cultural Heritage Center at the Ministry of Education, Culture and Science. However, the extract includes a listing of elements without any reference to their description or viability. Evidence about communities' involvement is also lacking. The evaluation body recommends that the committee refer the nomination to Mongolian traditional practices of worship in the sacred sites to the submitting state party. The committee may commend the state party for the strong commitment demonstrated while regretting that the nomination didn't fulfill all the requirements stipulated for Criterion U5. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Skunti, for this detailed explanation of the different issues raised during the evaluation of this file. This is now the second case of dual system of draft decisions that is coming to our attention. I will proceed in the same manner as for the previous nomination, but in a more quicker manner, as we have agreed on a standard form about chapter para containing our criterion U5. Pursuant to the working method presented on Monday, the committee has received written information from the submitting states concerning the questions raised by EB in its recommendation. This written information will be attached for the record to the nomination file. In conformity with the Rule 22.4 of the Rules of Procedure of the committee, I'd like to give the floor to the submitting state to provide us with the relevant information concerning the element description and viability in the inventory, the evidence of the community's involvement in the inventorying process. Allow me to remind the submitting state that its intervention shall be limited to address these two specific issues. Mongolia, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. State party has provided to the committee with the extracts from the separate folder showing the process of recording concerning the element and also the materials related to the involvement of communities and NGOs concerned in the updating process of inventory. The Center of Cultural Heritage under the Ministry of Education, Culture, Science and Sports maintains the national representative list of ICH and the national list of ICH in need of urgent safeguarding, and also conducts the inventory, documentation and safeguarding measures to the ICH elements and its practitioners. All gathered data from the state inventory, registration and documentation of ICH elements and its practitioners, such as audio and video recordings, photographs, descriptions, viability of safeguarding measures, risks, threats related to ICH are being kept in the registration and information state database of cultural heritage and being used for the research and the studies and safeguarding measures. Some part of the information extracted from the general data was, for instance, the list of ICH elements listed on national lists and its practitioners' information, some part of inventory being used and updated. The government of Mongolia has taken an active policy to revive and promote national culture, customs, and traditions. This policy, in which of sacred sites is specified as the intangible cultural heritage, provides a favorable condition to revive, introduce, and tradition of sacred site worship. For instance, in 2016, in the law on the protection of cultural heritage that newly revised and passed by the Parliament, were added following articles related to ICH, including sacred mountains and sites. It says, cultural heritage landscape means the cultural space and landscape where tangible and intangible cultural heritage interrelated with natural environment and traditional livelihood. And it also says, the President has the power to announce the cultural heritage properties that could be protected under the auspices of the President and make decisions for sacred mountains and waters to be state worship sites. Also, it says the Parliament shall have the power to take cultural heritage landscape, including sacred sites, under special state protection and delineate their boundaries on the basis of government submission. For enhancing the visibility and importance of sacred sites and worship rituals, in 2015, Mongolian government has included 6 main sacred mountains of Mongolia on the newly revised and approved national tentative list for nominating onto the World Heritage List. The government and the local communities have been active role in reviving the tradition. For example, in 2015, the national workshop for ICH practices was organized, and among them there were more than 20 practitioners of worship and rituals from rural areas who made their own presentations of best practices. Recently, in 2016, mining licenses within some sacred sites, for instance, Sacred Noyam Mountain, were annulled by the decision of the Parliament. In new revised law on the protection of cultural heritage were added new requirements for preliminary prospecting and research by archaeological and ethnological scientific organizations prior to issuing land for purposes of economic activities. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mongolia. The floor is now open to committee members. Turkey.
Mr. Chairperson, we would like to express our appreciation for the evaluation body's diligent efforts on the evaluation of the files. We thank Mongolia for the information that they submit to committee. When the inventory system of Mongolia is examined and their clarifications are followed. As Turkey, we consider that the inventory is updated regularly and the participation of concerned committee is quite adequate. Besides that, Mongolia shared detailed information with the committee indicating the process of registration of the element with the community participation on their inventory. We would like to express our positive thoughts about the nomination file, and considering that our 4 criteria are found satisfactory by the evaluation body, we supported the inscription option for the element. Thank you.
Thank you, Turkey. I now give the floor to Bulgaria.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. La délégation de la Bulgarie souhaiterait exprimer sa satisfaction avec les explications fournies par l'État soumissionnaire et de souligner que cette information démontre la viabilité de l'élément ainsi que les participations des communautés locales au processus d'inventaire. Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you. India.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to join my voice to the two that came before me and say that our delegation believes that the information that has been considered missing by the evaluation body has been provided by the submitting state, and we would support the inscription of this item. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, India. Palestine.
شكرا سيد الرئيس، ولن أطيل عليكم. مثل من سبقوني من الزملاء، نحن ندعم تسجيل هذا الملف لأن التوضيحات التي وصلتنا كانت كافية. شكرا سيد الرئيس.
Okay, in the same manner as we have discussed previous file, there are so many speakers on my list: Turkey, Colombia, Bulgaria, Palestine, India, Philippines, Armenia, Ethiopia, Hungary, Algeria, Senegal, and Afghanistan, Cote d'Ivoire. So are there any opposing views or specific questions addressed to submitting states? Otherwise, let me propose to stop here, and your supporting the statement will be duly recorded. I see none. Okay, thank you so much. I believe we are now ready to move to the adoption of the decision para by para. Para 1, no objections. I think it's adopted. Can we consider criterion U1 adopted? Oh, okay, yeah, para. Yeah, U2 adopted. And scroll down a little, U3, no amendment, U4, no amendment. So U3, U4 adopted. Can we consider para 2 adopted as a whole? Adopted. Based on interventions from members of the committee, it seems that we are now satisfied that the information considered as missing by the evaluation body has been provided by the submitting states at the present meeting. Can we consider criterion U5 as proposed under the inscription option adopted, as we have agreed on new standard form? Have you agreed on whole U5 and the whole para 3? Thank you. So para 3, including U5, is adopted. Can we consider para 4 of the inscription option adopted? I recognize Turkey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, I think it will be more appropriate if we adopt the same approach towards all files. In the previous file, we added a para which was commending the state parties. I think it will be also appropriate to insert such a para here for the sake of consistency in all the files. Thank you.
Thank you. I think it's time for Secretariat to jump in.
I'd just like to explain what happened in the last one on that issue. That paragraph was initially there at the request of the evaluation body. It was not fully added. It was because St. Lucia was concerned that it was being taken out as we withdrew. So under the referral option, it still wanted to commend that there was a particularly good example. So it was about a particular aspect of the file. If we apply that same paragraph to every file, it's no longer, it doesn't maintain its sense. I understand the wish to do it. I just want to clarify what exactly that paragraph said, why it was raised, why the issue was raised. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Turkey, Emily, Ms. Emily, once again. Okay.
Maybe, in order to give, again, a positive twist, can we maybe insert something of this sort? Commends the state party for the strong commitment demonstrated, which is already in para 5, I believe. Thank you.
Indeed, but it was under para 5 of the referral option, so we can just take that, if we understand you want to take that first standard para and move it. Okay. In each time there is a paragraph under the referral option, we should also include it under the inscription option, if that's what I understand. Thank you.
Yes, please, exactly what I meant. Thank you.
I recognize the distinguished delegates of Zambia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On that same para 5, it shouldn't just be uplifted. It needs to be edited a little bit so that it sounds positive. We would say commends the state party for the strong commitment demonstrated towards fulfillment of all the requirements stipulated for Criterion U5. So we delete those regrettably, what we just say commitment towards fulfillment of the requirements of Criterion U5. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Zambia. Now I give the floor to Hungary.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for giving us the floor. Indeed, we very much agree with the direction given by Turkey that we should export this sentence of comment, of positive comment from the other option. But our understanding that the commitment of the state party is for the safeguarding of the element, not in particular for U5. So if we continue with the sentence, then our understanding is that the commitment demonstrated by Mongolia is for the safeguarding of the element. That's one point. Another issue that I wanted to raise, which may not have to make it into the draft decision, but I just give for consideration, is that this element is inscribed on the tentative list for the World Heritage List as well, which I think is a good example of interaction between the two conventions. I don't see any problem with that. It's just to note there. I don't know if some delegations would like to make it into the DR. If ever, then it could be placed here. That is also an evidence for safeguarding, but I don't force that. But I think the commitment is overall for safeguarding, not in particular for U5. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Hungary. Now I give the floor to Turkey again, and followed by Palestine.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, indeed, we also agree with Hungary. The commitment is towards safeguarding the elements, so I think just to limit to criterion U5 will not be appropriate. Thank you.
No, Palestine first, and followed by Zambia. Palestine.
Shukran, Sayyid al-Rais. I do really agree with the proposal of Turkey and of Hungary. Our understanding is the commitment is not towards the U5, it's towards the element, the safeguarding of the element itself. Second thing, I think here, for the synergy between the cultural conventions of UNESCO, it is important to add a small paragraph welcoming the inscription of the sacred sites with the full name, of course, on their tentative list for the World Heritage list. So it could be after 4, a new 4 bis or 5 that says welcomes the inscription of the Mongolian traditional practices, of actually the sacred sites of the Mongolian and so on their tentative list for inscription, for how to say, for possible inscription on the World Heritage list. Okay.
Yeah, I now give the floor to Zambia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, I think we will agree with the previous speakers, although when I look at this item number, para 5, the commendation was towards the effort that was made towards achieving U5, but it was unfortunate that they didn't. So I don't know, maybe the evaluation board will be able to explain exactly what the commendation was all about. Thank you.
Thank you, Zambia. And regarding the new edition of Para 5, put forward by Palestine, I think it's a letter, we'd better ask the position of Mongolia, whether it's acceptable. So Palestine first? Okay.
Yes, please, Mr. Chair. Only to be clear, actually, we welcome the inscription of the sites, not the practice. It couldn't be the practice. On the tentative list for the World Heritage, we don't inscribe traditional practices, we inscribe sites. So the wording should be changed. Let me see. Welcome the inscription of the sacred mountains, yes, of Mongolia. Yeah, this is good. Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you, Ambassador Mounier. No more comments. Okay, now I give the floor to Mr. Secretary.
May I just remind that in terms of the tentative list, sites are included, they are not inscribed. And in that sense, it may be more prudent to write welcomes the inclusion of the site on the tentative list. Thank you.
Okay, Ambassador Mounier, do you agree? Okay, thank you. And I'm wondering whether Mongolia wants you to take a floor, or no problem? Okay, I give the floor to Mongolia.
Thank you, Chair. No problem. That's okay.
Thank you, Mongolia. Ethiopia first, and followed by Hungary. Now I give the floor to Ethiopia.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. Curtis, for the explanation you gave us on inclusion. But again, I would like to request, Mr. Tim, your explanation whether this committee have a mandate to welcome on another convention. Thank you.
Indeed. First of all, this committee doesn't have a mandate on the World Heritage Convention. Now, the question is what has happened in the past is There have been positive notes on elements that have a link to World Heritage sites, but they were sites already inscribed. This, I understand, is a tentative list site. A tentative list site has not been inscribed. That is why I wanted to point out the point of inclusion. Tentative list sites, and again, I don't want to speak authoritatively at all on the World Heritage Convention, and I'm not trying to do that. My understanding is that tentative list is done by state parties themselves and is not going through the intergovernmental process. I think the language needs to be very careful indeed, because I don't understand or know what has happened in relation to this site for the World Heritage Convention. A tentative list is not an inscription. So I would advise caution. We do want to welcome the synergies, but the language needs to be very careful. And in those other cases, the synergies of a site and the element were actually included in the dossier. So the state submitting party put them forward, which allowed the evaluation body to comment on that in a positive way. In this case, we don't know if there's any mention of this in the file. We don't know. So again, I can tell you that this committee has certainly no authority to make any decision to influence anything in the 1972 convention.
Okay, the reply is directly linked to the question raised by Ethiopia. So Ethiopia and Hungary, followed by Palestine. I give the floor to Ethiopia first.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for giving me the floor again. And thank you so much, Mr. Tim, for the explanation you gave. That was exactly what I wanted to make all of us very clear. Our domain of mandate is to this convention, and we have to respect the domain of mandate of the committee for the 1972 convention. So in this framework, we can welcome the inclusion to the state party within the framework of our mandate, but we cannot infer the possible inscription in another discrete convention. If you see the sentence, it not only welcomes, it infers the possible inscription on the World Heritage Convention. So I think the language has to be very well crafted and qualified. Otherwise, you know, it would be very challenging when we look at it from the perspective of the 1972 Convention Committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Ethiopia. Now I give the floor to Hungary.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I'm trying to respond to many issues that have been raised by distinguished members of the committee. First of all, the information about the tentative listing is in the information provided by Mongolia. It's the last page. It is the letter by Dr. Mehdi Rösler to Mongolia, in which the director of the World Heritage Center in 2015, 4th of December, acknowledges with thanks the receipt of your letter dated 6 November 2015 concerning the addition of the Sacred Mountains of Mongolia site on the tentative list. And now comes the key sentence. I am pleased to inform you that the documentation submitted complies with the operational guidelines and the site was included on the tentative list of Mongolia. Now, the procedure in the World Heritage Convention is that states parties submit their updated tentative lists and the committee acknowledges this on the upcoming session. So this has gone through committee procedure, but as a way of acknowledgement. As for the language of the paragraph as it stands, my understanding is that at the end of the paragraph, on the tentative list for possible inscription on the World Heritage List, not on the convention. So instead of convention, it should stand for list. And I was just checking out the operational guidelines of the World Heritage Convention. I think the formulation comes from there, that it's tentative list for possible inscription on the World Heritage List, but I need to verify that in a moment. So if we want to refer to this, our delegation is confident with this welcoming sentence. And As for procedurally, this, I understand, has not been included in the nomination file. This has been provided us in this documentation now. So I think the committee has the possibility to pick up this information if it so wishes. I see no obstacle to that in terms of procedure. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Hungary. Now Palestine.
Shukran, Sayyid al-Rais. I don't know how our colleague from Hungary took everything that I wanted to say, actually, exactly, completely, that's what I wanted to say. Now, to settle the concerns of our colleague from Ethiopia, if he has a problem, actually, possible inscription, it is not binding for anybody. Actually, when we include a site on the tentative list, it is for possible inscription. We are not saying that it will be inscribed or for inscription. This is the first point. Second, if he has a problem with welcoming it, we can take note at least. But the idea here is the synergies between the cultural conventions and to encourage these synergies. This is the scope behind it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Palestine. Now I give the floor to Senegal.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Je crois que ce que le secrétariat a annoncé tout à l'heure est important. Il faut faire beaucoup attention et utiliser les termes prudents entre les deux conventions. Nos procédures ne sont pas les mêmes. On peut se féliciter qu'il y ait une synergie parce qu'entre le matériel et l'immatériel, c'est des réactions dialectiques. Personne ne peut le nier, en tout cas pour certains sites sacrés. Mais ici, encore une fois, c'est juste appeler à la prudence. Nous ne pouvons pas donner l'impression qu'on interfère et qu'on est presque pour l'inscription du site sur la liste du patrimoine mondial. L'inscription du site sur la liste du patrimoine mondial demande d'autres exigences par rapport à l'État partie et par rapport à d'autres organes. Donc, il faut éviter simplement que cette phrase puisse être interprétée. Je comprends parfaitement ce que dit notre distingué délégué de la Palestine. Je comprends que c'est une formule consacrée de dire possible, mais si on peut simplement se féliciter que ce site soit inclus sur la liste du patrimoine mondial, sur la liste indicative, c'est bon. Mais possible inscription, ça peut être interprété autrement. Et il faut être prudent sur les termes. Je vous remercie, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you. And the Philippines, Turkey, St. Lucia. I now give the floor to Philippines.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairperson. We've listened very closely to the debate under this item and for this paragraph. We acknowledge the views of especially Ethiopia and Senegal in this regard. I think the suggestion made by Palestine to just take note perhaps could cover this. We think that having a general and coherent approach has to be taken into consideration. If we welcome the inclusion of this particular site in the tentative list of one state party with some connections to an ICH element that we have just inscribed or will inscribe, then we should do so for all tentative lists of states parties, which is probably not the approach, the intention. So I think maybe taking note can be the way forward, and if it can add further context, maybe at the end of the sentence include something like in view of synergies between cultural conventions, if you want to add further context. But I think that taking note in itself might be the very simple solution. Thank you.
Okay, Turkey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, along the lines of Senegal, Ethiopia, and the Philippines, we also think that we need to be very cautious and not interfere in the World Heritage Convention. Our preference would be to delete the para and to reflect it in the report of this meeting. But if the general consensus is towards keeping the paragraph with taking note, including the amendment made by the delegation of Philippines, we will not object to that. But again, I want to reiterate that we would prefer to delete the paragraph and to reflect it in the report of the meeting. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Turkey. At this point, can I ask Ambassador Munir of Palestine, and because it was not proposed by submitting state of Mongolia, you have no intention of withdrawing this para?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Actually, I'm very flexible, but I think that since so many years, the different conventions were trying to enhance the synergies. And the idea, as I mentioned since the beginning, is only to encourage the synergies. So in that case, I think the suggestion of our colleague from Philippines is absolutely appropriate, and this will settle all the concerns. I think if we read it this way, takes note of the inclusion of the Sacred Mountains of Mongolia on the tentative list, and then we delete for possible inscription, and instead we say in view of synergies between, between the cultural conventions of UNESCO. And this is the mandate of all the committees of the cultural conventions. I think we need to keep in mind that the synergies between conventions is necessary, and if we keep it in the report as suggested by our colleague from Turkey, it wouldn't be so visible. So I hope that this last formulation would settle all the concerns. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Palestine. Yeah, I have two more speakers, but in my view, we are talking about the committee members, and they are participating in ICH, and this kind of para, in my opinion, should have raised by submitting state. Having said that, I give the floor, Saint Lucia. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to say, I support that we tread on the side of caution. We are opening up something here that, when we come to other things, we may see other places where this comes up, and I am not too comfortable with the implications of putting it there, and so I would side with Turkey and tread on the side of deleting it and probably reflecting it somewhere else in the report. But I think we should tread on the side of caution, and my preference would be to just take it out and let's, as Turkey recommended, put it in the report somewhere else.
Thank you, Saint Lucia. And as a last speaker, I give the floor to Côte d'Ivoire.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. La Côte d'Ivoire marque effectivement une certaine réserve par rapport au paragraphe, à la proposition de la Palestine et soutient la proposition de la Turquie. L'idéal, c'est que le paragraphe soit biffé, mais au cas où il y ait consensus, nous préférons peut-être la dernière modification. Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Okay, Philippines.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairperson. As we mentioned earlier, we have inherent flexibility. It wasn't really a proposal to put the last part. We were fine with taking notes, but we've listened very closely again to committee members, and if that is the case, we can take out this reference here and maybe in the general DR on item 11, put some wording regarding the need to encourage further synergies between the cultural conventions, something similar to what the distinguished delegate from Palestine was saying, and we can look for appropriate formulation and would appreciate guidance in this regard also as to the placing of that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Philippines. Let's go back to para 4, new para 4, just put forward by Turkey and supported by many countries. So, para 4 already adopted? No. Can we consider para 4 adopted? New para 4? I think no objections. Para 4 adopted.
Sorry. Just a small remark, maybe also to facilitate my task as rapporteur. There is a preposition missing. Strong commitment demonstrated towards the safeguarding of the element. Thank you. The two words is missing, or for safeguarding. We need a preposition. Native speakers, welcome. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Hungary. So demonstrated towards the safeguarding of the element. Okay, thank you. Yeah, regarding the paragraph 4, the last sentence, towards the fulfillment of all the requirements stipulated for Criterion R5, I understand that there are many delegations wanted to delete. It's not necessary. Yeah, so, yeah, Zambia, do you agree? Okay, thank you. So, paragraph 4, towards the safeguarding of the element, yeah, period. Palestine? No. Okay. So para 4, secondly adopted. Para 5, I give the floor to, yeah, because the proposal is Palestine, yeah, Palestine first, and Turkey and Algeria.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll simplify the life of the committee. I think our colleague from Philippines has a very constructive and positive proposal, so I agree with his proposal. We can delete the paragraph here, and we will add it in the general item 11. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thanks to the Philippines.
Okay, thank you, Palestine. Now I give the Turkey. No, now it's finished. All right. Okay.
Yes.
Anyway.
Yes, I was just thinking we could also maybe reflect in the report of the evaluation, but in order to achieve visibility, but that's fine. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Turkey and Algeria.
Oui, Monsieur le Président, loin de moi d'aller contre le consensus, c'est juste pour faire rappel. Je ne voulais pas prendre part au débat au début, mais c'est juste pour faire rappel au paragraphe 3 de la Convention, à l'article 3, qui parle des relations avec les instruments internationaux et qui nommément cite la Convention de 72. Dans le petit a, donc je fais lecture, rien dans la présente Convention ne peut être interprété comme altérant le statut ou diminuant le niveau de protection des biens déclarés au patrimoine mondial dans le cadre de la Convention pour la protection du patrimoine mondial culturel et naturel de 72, auquel un élément du patrimoine culturel immatériel est directement associé. Donc c'est en partie le cas ici. Et notre convention prend en charge déjà l'interaction entre la 72 et la 2003. Donc nous sommes en plein dans notre mandat. C'est juste pour rassurer quelques collègues qui se posaient la question, c'est est-ce que nous pouvons ou pas traiter de tels sujets là. Je vous remercie, Monsieur le Président.
Okay, thank you, Algeria. And para 5. I see no objections. Para 5 adopted. Can we then adopt the decision as a whole, as amended? Seeing no objection, I therefore declare decision 12.com 11.A.3 adopted as amended. Congratulations, Mongolia. The floor is yours for 2 minutes.
Distinguished Chairman, members of the committee, delegates from the state parties to the convention. Traditional worship in sacred mountains and water is one of the vulnerable intangible cultural heritage elements created, developed, and practiced by nomadic Mongolians since ancient times. This traditional lawless system has been ignored or even prohibited for a certain period of time of the world-divided ideology in the 20th century. Since 1990, Mongolian national tradition and rituals have started to revive. Mongolians feel inspired with enthusiasm to revitalize this lost tradition that greatly support the natural and cultural diversity. The government of Mongolia has taken continuous efforts and activities to the safeguarding of the intangible cultural heritage in cooperation with UNESCO, and have provided sustainability and stability of several ICH elements which were in the danger of disappearance. It's a great honor to express our appreciation on behalf of the Mongolian government to all committee members of this 12th session for supporting the nomination file, the Mongolian traditional practice of worship in the sacred sites, to the inscription of the list of intangible cultural heritage in need of urgent safeguarding of UNESCO. Also, our special thanks goes to the evaluation body for their hard work dedicated to the nomination file. I do believe this inscription will make significant changes in the present status of this heritage element in the age of extinction, and will bring the element into the focus of not only Mongolian people, but also of the world humanity. Representatives of our bearers are ready to perform the piece of worshiping hymn to the nature and sacred sites for your attention. Please welcome. Thank you very much, Chair.
Congratulations once again to Mongolia. We now come to the examination of the nomination submitted by Morocco, entitled Taskwin Martial Dance of the Western High Atlas. Draft decision 11.A.4. As has been the practice in the past, a member of the body did not participate in the evaluation of the nominations submitted by country of domiciliation of the non-governmental organization he/she represents, or by the country of nationality of an expert or of a representative from a non-governmental organization. I will therefore now give the floor to Ms. Amelia Prasaon Moreira as Vice Chairperson of the evaluation body, so that she can share with us the findings of the body on this proposal. Ms. Prasaon Moreira, please come join us on the podium. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. Task Queen is a martial dance specific to the Western Eye Atlas that gets its name from the horn each dancer carries. It involved shaking one's shoulders to the rhythm of tambourines and flutes. The practice is threatened by several factors, including globalization, young people's increased disdain for traditional heritage practices, and a decline in the related craftsmanship. The last 2 decades have nonetheless seen an increased collective awareness among communities, and dedicated associations have been set up to safeguard the practice. Criterion U1 is satisfied. The element consists of an artistic dance practices during festive occasions, which serves various social functions. Despite being of martial origin, its social functions have evolved over time, and nowadays it serves to accompany celebrations, peacefully resolve tensions within or between communities, and foster community integration. Criterion U2 is met as the threats to the viability are identified. The loss of barriers, immigration of young people to urban centers, their lack of interest in the apprenticeship, disappearance of craft of making the related music instruments, and an undue commercialization of folk dance, among others. Criterion U3 is also satisfied. Efforts to revitalize the element were initiated by young community members and fully supported by elders. The safeguarding plan is coherent and feasible, with clear objectives and measures to respond to the perceived threats. It includes awareness raising, research and documentation, promotion, creation of a federation of task queen associations, diversification of sources of funding for activities, apprenticeships with elders, and establishment of archives. Criterion U4 is also met. A local association initiates the nomination process, and the file was prepared with the active participation of stakeholders and representatives, including elderly persons, young, human, a variety of bearers, and researchers. Written consents and video clips attest to the board community endorsement. Finally, Criterion U5 is also satisfied. The element has been included in the National Inventory of Intangible Cultural Heritage since 2014, with the participation of the communities concerned. It is administered by the Cultural Heritage Directorate at the Ministry of Culture, which ensures its periodic updating. Therefore, the evaluation body recommends to inscribe Task Queen martial dance of the Western Eye Atlas on the list of intangible cultural heritage in need of urgent safeguarding.
Thank you, Ms. Prasaon Moreira, for this detailed explanation of the different issues raised during the evaluation of this file. The Bureau did not receive any request for debate or amendment for this file. May I therefore ask the committee to adopt the draft decision on this file as shown on the screens as a whole? Okay, I see no objection. I therefore declare decision 12.com 11.A.4 adopted. Congratulations, Morocco. The floor is yours for 2 minutes. Thank you.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Le Maroc tient à remercier la République de Corée pour son hospitalité et l'excellente organisation de cette session. Nous remercions les distingués membres du comité d'avoir accepté d'inscrire Taskiwin, danse martiale des Hautes Atlas occidentales marocains, sur la liste du patrimoine culturel immatériel nécessitant une sauvegarde urgente. Il s'agit du premier élément du patrimoine culturel marocain à être inscrit sur cette liste. Nos vifs remerciements vont également à l'organe d'évaluation qui a étudié notre candidature, ainsi qu'au secrétariat qui accompagne de manière efficace et professionnelle les États parties, notamment dans le processus de la soumission des candidatures, de leur évaluation et de l'inscription des éléments. Le Maroc tient également à réitérer ses remerciements au secrétariat et au comité d'avoir octroyé en 2013 une assistance préparatoire qui a permis à l'association Talga Aid, principale entité représentante des communautés et l'initiatrice de la candidature, d'élaborer celle-ci dans de meilleures conditions. Si le Maroc se réjouit aujourd'hui de l'inscription de la danse Taskiwin sur la liste de sauvegarde urgente, il ne peut ignorer la lourde tâche qui est désormais la sienne, celle justement d'accompagner les communautés détentrices de cette danse ancestrale dans la mise en œuvre du plan de sauvegarde détaillé dans le formulaire de la candidature. Plusieurs activités ont été déjà entamées, allant dans le sens de la revitalisation, de la sauvegarde et de la promotion de cette danse qui risquait de tout simplement disparaître il y a quelques années. Je voudrais pour finir vous faire part de la grande sensibilisation qu'a suscité le processus de l'élaboration de cette candidature au sein des différentes autres communautés de la région. Une vraie dynamique s'engage en effet, visant la sauvegarde d'un plus grand nombre d'éléments du patrimoine culturel immatériel. Ce constat interpelle non seulement notre ministère de la Culture, institution principale chargée de la mise en œuvre de la Convention à l'échelle nationale, mais aussi le devenir même de la Convention, car tout simplement les demandes d'inscription émanant des communautés ne cessent de s'accroître. Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Morocco, and once again, congratulations. Thank you, Ms. Frazão Moreira, for stepping in to replace the chairperson of the evaluation body on the presentation of the body's recommendation on this file. We will now move to the examination of the nomination whistled language draft decision 11.A.5 submitted by Turkey. I will now give the floor to the chairperson of the EB so that she can share with us the findings of the body on this nomination. Sorry, Mr. Chairperson, you just get back.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. The next file is whistle language submitted by Turkey. Whistle language is a method of communication that uses whistling to stimulate and articulate words. The practice is connected to the rugged topography of the region, which required the local population to find ways to communicate across long distances. Technological developments and socioeconomic changes have led to a decline in the number of practitioners, and the new generation's interest in the practice has diminished considerably. Communities concerned are nonetheless committed to actively promoting this linguistic practice both nationally and internationally. Mr. Chair, Criterion U1 is satisfied for this nomination. The element constitutes intangible cultural heritage and reinforces social bonds among local people living in a rugged environment. It is a cultural means of expression used and transmitted by all segments of society and reflects human creativity. Criterion U2 is met because the threats described encompass the decline in the number of practitioners, the lack of interest among young people, rural-urban migrations, the decrease in locations in which the element is practiced, and the influence of the mass media and the increased use of mobile phones. Criterion U3 is also satisfied. The 4-year feasible safeguarding plan was elaborated with the communities concerned. It includes documentation, support for tradition bearers, promotion through festivals, a pilot project to teach parents who use the whistle language how to transmit the element to their children, organization of competitions, provision of promotional materials, among others. Criterion U4 is also met. Communities were involved both in the early stages of research into the element and later in the nomination process. Personalized, free, prior, and informed consent letters from community members and practitioners are provided. Finally, Criterion U5 is also satisfied as the element was included in the National Inventory of Intangible Cultural Heritage of Turkey in 2010 with the participation of the bearers. This inventory is managed by and regularly updated by the Ministry of Culture and Tourism. The evaluation body recommends to inscribe whistle language on the list of intangible cultural heritage in need of urgent safeguarding. The committee may also remind the state party to take particular heed of the impact of tourism and undue commercialization on the safeguarding of the element in order to prevent its decontextualization. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. The Bureau did not receive any request for debate and amendment for this file. May I therefore ask the committee to adopt draft decision on this file as shown on the screens as a whole? Just scroll down, and I see no objections. I therefore declare decision 12.com 11.A.5 adopted. Congratulations, Turkey. The floor is yours for 2 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Whistle language was widely spoken in Turkey's eastern Black Sea region. Unfortunately, as a result of technological developments and socioeconomic changes, there has been a decline both in the number of people using the whistle language and areas where it is spoken. Whistle language, which has been seen in various other regions of the world, is an environmentally friendly form of communication. The element makes life easier and more harmonious at the same time, reinforces social bonds for its community. We believe that the element's viability should be ensured by taking serious safeguarding measures, and also bearers need to be encouraged for transmitting their cultural heritage. In this regard, the nomination process started with the concerned communities deciding to sustain the whistle language and transmit it onto future generations by safeguarding and preventing its disappearance through its promotion at local, national, and international level. Since concerned community considers whistle language as their reflection of their cultural identity, they wholeheartedly participated in the process of preparation of the file. Therefore, the preparation of safeguarding plan is easily constructed by the whole stakeholders of the element. On behalf of the concerned community who practice whistle language, Turkey would like to thank the committee members and would like to extend its sincere gratitude to the evaluation body for their support throughout the inscription process. We think that the inscription of the element on the urgent list will create a positive atmosphere in the concerned community, and even this atmosphere will considerably enhance the efforts of the safeguarding and ensuring viability of the element. Finally, Mr. Chair, the inscription of the whistled language, which is used in different parts of the world with special methods and techniques, is not only a contribution to viability of the element, but also raising awareness on intangible cultural heritage in general. While concluding my remarks, we will have a brief film if the Secretary would be kind enough to screen. Thank you very much.
Life is hard in the steep and rugged mountainous region of the Black Sea. Houses are built on the precipitous slopes. Even though woody and mountainous terrain keeps the people apart with their creative intelligence, the people of the Black Sea region find an easy way of getting closer: social cohesion and communication, whistled language. Known across a broad geography, from Ordu to Giresun and from Gümüşhane to Trabzon, whistled language meets the communication needs in the region. The inscription of whistled language, the Black Sea's ancient voice, on the UNESCO list of intangible cultural heritage in need of urgent safeguarding, is a remarkable step for the efforts made for keeping this part of our cultural identity alive. As a result of all these efforts, the whistled sounds will never end across the misty plateaus of the Black Sea.
Okay, thank you. We almost concluded very hard work in this morning. Before adjourning morning meeting, I'd like to give the floor to Mr. Secretary for announcements.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. I believe all participants, you will have received an invitation this morning as you have been invited to a lunch reception very generously hosted by your chair. This lunch being offered by the chair will be held at Ocean View Restaurant on this floor, on the 5th floor, and you may go right after the closing of the session. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. You are all invited to my lunch. Thank you again. We are meeting again promptly at 2:30 p.m. Please make sure you are here on time as usual. The meeting is adjourned.